Everyone can hear me, I hope. Um, so I'm going to talk about AI agents today. And you might have seen yesterday in the video that Dries recorded that this was a part of what's going to be in Drupal CMS then. And the idea behind this is very simple. You use natural language to make the website do something, and hopefully it does what you're actually asking it to do. So what I'm going to show today is basically how they work in the background, and I'm also going to give some examples. And I will say that the showcases I'm doing here is actually live, so you can see that this is not some vision of something that's going to happen in the future. This is actually working today, and this is something you can install after this presentation. So first about me, my name is Marcus. I work at Freely Give. So Freely Give basically pays my salary to do a lot of open source stuff in the combination of Drupal and AI. So this is basically what I have been working on the last half year. So I am like the main maintainer for this AI agents that I'm going to show today, but I'm also a co-maintainer then of the general AI module that exists for Drupal. I will say this right away, while I know very well how to integrate AI, I am not an expert of actually doing deep learning and so on. I have done some typical supervised machine learning, like TensorFlow, YOLO, and stuff like this. But I don't have an extensive background working with AI. I have, however, worked the last 2 years more or less full-time on just integrating AI and specifically integrating Drupal and AI. And I can also say, like a hipster thing, I actually used GPT before ChatGPT was released. So there was GPT-3 before ChatGPT was released, and I actually used this before the whole craze of ChatGPT. How many saw this? So Driesnote from Barcelona. So most of the people here have seen it. So while this is like a showcase that's very targeted to marketers, what I will show you today is also that this is something that can help developers as well. There are other ways than just this chatbot, how you can interact with these agents as developers or more technical site builders. Yeah, we start, so I just showcase it to start with here. Let's see. So this is basically, this is actually Drupal CMS installed with the extra AI recipe then that we have created. So I was writing in the introduction to this talk that I was going to showcase how you can install these as well, but I'm not going to showcase this because you can basically go and get Drupal CMS, the merge request for the AI track, and install it yourself. And the idea here is very simple. Then we have the page content type. There's a chatbot. You can see right now there's a body field. I'm just going to send away this request, and can you create an image field on the page content type? Yep. Let's see. Is that better? And it just answers like, yeah, we did this. We're just going to go ahead and reload. And all of a sudden you have an image field there, right? So this is basically the base idea behind it all. So I'm just gonna drag this away here. So before I start talking about this, I will just mention a little bit about the AI module, because everything the AI agents does and a lot of other things that exist is based on the AI module. And what the AI module is basically a abstraction layer that abstracts away AI providers. And what this means is it doesn't really matter if you prefer to use OpenAI or if you prefer to use Anthropic. Maybe you want to use your own local models that's running on your computer, run something enterprise, or even fine-tune, or even maybe train your own models. It should be possible to run it in a abstracted way where you can basically hot swap it. So if someone builds a third-party module on top of the AI module, it will be possible to basically hot swap any provider, any model. It also has something called operation types. So we basically figured out that there are typical things that these different AI things does. So a typical thing is chat, of course, from ChatGPT, but it can be creating text to image as well. Could be audio to text. There's a lot of different operation types that we also abstracted away here then. And it also takes care of configurations. So one problem that we saw before was basically that, well, I was creating something called the AI interpolator OpenAI. Kevin was creating the OpenAI module. There was Augmentor AI that was doing OpenAI. And if you had these 3 modules installed, you had to set up the OpenAI key 3 times at 3 different places. So this takes care of basically abstracting away this configuration. It also has some helper functions that are stuff that you need when you're working with AI. And one thing that's connected to the AI agents in this case is the possibility to take a prompt that you're asking for structured data like JSON or something and actually getting back arrays or some data structure. And yeah, it has a lot of cool mature submodules that I'm not gonna introduce today, but it can do a lot of cool stuff by itself by installing all these modules for doing stuff for editors, site builders, semantic search, and so on. So what is the problem with building something like the AI agents? Well, first of all, you have something called hallucinations. I guess some of you here have heard about it, or even when you try ChatGPT, maybe have seen it. So a problem is, for instance, if you were to ask ChatGPT, especially older models, something like who created Drupal, maybe one time out of 10,000, it would answer Matt Mullenweg or something, which is just not correct, right? Because it's basically following a specific token space to come to something that's similar there. But the thing with this is actually a part of how LLMs or generative AI works in general. So this is a quote from Sundar Pichai. It's actually a feature, this. And this feature is pretty simple to explain because you have something like this. Can you generate an image of a cow, right? Generates an image. If you were to ask this the same thing and it was deterministic, well, you would get the same image. There wouldn't be a reason for this to exist, right? So hallucinations can also be explained as creativity or randomness. And if you think, for instance, about the word made up or making up stories, this can have 2 meanings, of course. Something that's very negative when you're talking about facts, because if you're asking who created Drupal, you don't want it to make up something, right? But if you're asking it to create a cow, you want it to actually make up some kind of random version of a cow at least. And when it's making up lies, that's bad. But a made-up story like The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, that's something super, right? So this is a problem, of course. And the solution to this is actually quite easy. Um, if you give it context and boundaries, it will almost always stay within this context and boundaries. So this is easy to test with ChatGPT. You copy some text and ask for a summary about this. It's never gonna make up anything. The summary might not be perfect, but it's not gonna make up stuff. It's gonna be basing that on that context. Another problem is that you don't know how it's gonna answer, so it has random output, right? But what you want to do is make this output at least probabilistic. So it will never be deterministic like PHP, like this. Like Marcus is talking about the AI, true, return. Marcus is talking about the AI. This is always going to return true if you're using PHP, hopefully. But if you ask this from the context below, answer if Marcus is talking about AI, answer only yes or no. Context, Marcus was talking about AI. And maybe you have built some regex there looking for yes or no. And then it answers something like this. Yes, it seems like Marcus was talking about AI, but no other thing. All of a sudden you have a yes and a no in there, and you don't know like what should I actually react on. So this is a very good way of creating probabilistic output. And especially these tokens here, so words basically, RFC 8259 compliant JSON. Because when you're asking that, it goes into what it has learned about JSON. So not only is it gonna create answer in a data format for you, it's also actually gonna be more reliant in answering the question. And what is good with this also is not just that you get the data format back, it's also when it fails to create JSON, you know that something went wrong, which is very hard to do when it just responds text. Another problem with this is contextual understanding. Like, if you're giving this instruction, can you create a list field that shows the 10 most popular wrestlers from WWF called wrestler? It should be on the article type and be checkboxes when using the form. So some of this is fairly simple to understand for someone who has worked with Drupal, right? Article type, they probably mean the node article, right? But some things are kind of implicit. So if I say cardinality, and you look at this, does anyone know what the answer should be to that? How many items are you supposed to create on this? So if you look at checkboxes usually means that you have multiple answers, right? So if you take the form type for taxonomy, for instance, if it's only one choice, it's a radio. So from this, you can implicitly understand that, okay, if we want to create this field, we need to set cardinality to at least 2, probably unlimited, because you can't guess exactly what they mean with this. Another problem is a lot of like Drupal words. So if you take this instruction, you have words like vocabulary, taxonomy term, field type, entity reference, node, bundle. So if you ask some of your friends that don't know Drupal about this, would they be able to understand this? And more importantly, if this is the entry, the barrier of entry to write instructions, would someone who doesn't know Drupal ever be able to write something like this? Probably not, right? So it's more likely that it's something like this. So this is actually, I took that sentence and asked ChatGPT if this was a marketer that didn't know Drupal, how would they ask this question? So this is basically how the instruction would look in that case. And this actually, it's gonna be tested the next week, I think it is, in the by the track lead that's taking care of usability, I think, in the University of Edinburgh. So it's going to be tested on students, this actual chat that you saw before. And they're going to be given a task to do something, and it's going to be interesting if they can actually solve this using natural language without knowing Drupal. And then you have a lot longer instructions, because you might have some very specific things. So there's a lot of things to think about here. If you look at this prompt or instruction, can you read this, by the way? In the back as well? Good. So it's called My Images. Once again, this is implicit that this is probably many items, not one item, then it would have a singular name. Somewhere here it says, I want to store the image so no one else can see it. So the actual storage settings should be set to private files on the field settings. So based on the last talk, you should not do this. You should always have alt text requirements, but somewhere here it says that, okay, this is annoying, I don't want to fill this out every time. It also says that you want to crop it. So in this case, the image focal point module is installed. And there's a lot of field restrictions. It says that it wants JPEG. It says in text that it wants full HD, which has to be translated then to 1920 times 1080. And it should be lower than 4K, so 3840 times 2160. 5 megabytes misspelled, so it should be under 5 megabytes. It says that you want to link the image to the original image there somewhere. If you click on it, you see the original image. Hide the label from the view. It also says somewhere that they don't want to see the stupid title when they look at the image. Set the output to use full HD image style. So you see there's a lot of instructions going, or a lot of thinking that goes into such an instruction. If you were given this assignment yourself, this is the same thing than when we give it to a large language model. It has to try to understand this. And this I have used actually as a prompt when using one of the agents that creates field to see how well it produces this. And it gets it completely right around 90% of the time. It like misses one of these instructions, maybe 10% of the time. And there is this new model now, OpenAI 01, that actually gets this around 99% of the time correct. This is very expensive though, so and takes very long time, so not very usable for a chatbot. So how do they work then? So if we take the last instruction here, if you think of what you have to do inside Drupal, you first have to go to the content types and verify that the article actually exists, right? Otherwise, you can't create the field there. You have to check that the field type exists. So some field type that is similar to what they are asking about exists. And the next step is that you have to fill out the field storage. You want private files, right? You have to fill in all the field configuration on how you want to set it up, cropping, and like full HD on the view as well. So the agents actually works the exact same way. They follow a specific workflow of what they need to do. So they have first a triage agent. You can think of it as a project manager, in this case for fields. So there's a lot of different agents that can do a lot of different things. In the examples I talk about today, it's just going to be about field. So this is the field agent. So there is a project manager agent or a triage agent that gets this instruction and tries to figure out like First, it's given the context, like these are the node types that exist. Does this actual node type or other entity that they're asking about exist? Yes, if it exists, what are they trying to create? Is there anything in this instruction that requires you to put something into storage settings, into field configuration, and so on? And then it passes this over to sub-agents for these different tasks. So the first one, look so the entity type exists. And this is using LLM because you might want to be able to write it in a natural language, right? You might not know the node type, so you might write something like, on that article type where I review cars, and the actual node type is called car reviews. You still want it to understand what you mean there. So because of this is getting passed to the LLM. It's not PHP testing this out. It has to check so the field doesn't exist already, of course, because you can't create a field that exists. It has to check the list of field types to basically choose the correct one. It has to look if some special storage settings are needed. And if they are needed, this works very similar as well to what you saw in the graphics. It basically loads all the context from the default configuration and from the actual form. So it gets like the title and the description of the different form fields, options if it's a select list and so on, and feeds this back to the LLM. So it knows how is this JSON supposed to be structured, what are my alternatives, and how do they fit to what the person is asking in the instruction. And it does this for field config, it does this for form settings, it does this for view display settings as well. So when you're actually building one of these agents, it's very good to think how a human would do this as well, because it's very similar to how AI does it. So what are they? It's a contrib module to start with, so it's not enough that you get the AI module. There is an actual AI agents module that you need to install to be able to use these. So it is, in its core, it's a plugin system that takes instructions and does what's usually called text to action. It wants to take some action. It doesn't necessarily need to be this. It could answer questions as well. It could do other things as well. And they can all be called using a simple plugin manager, so using Drupal's plugin system. What this means, of course, that is very important, is that any agent that gets created can be added to any module. They don't have to all go into this AI agents module. So if you're developing a contrib module and you actually want this to be available so you can type and write so it does something, you can create this AI agent yourself and have it as part of your module. So already when they install your module, someone installs your module, they can start using it. Yeah, you can have agents that has the sole task of orchestrating other agents. So project manager agents that tells other agents what to do. You can, because of this, of course, create agents for your specific business cases. And this is what it does in the end. So when you're talking about AI, what AI is super good at that didn't really exist before the whole craze that has been the last 2 years, that's taking something unstructured and making it structured, or doing it the other way around. And this is what's happening here. You're taking unstructured chat, message, instructions, making this into something structured that you can feed into PHP or to Drupal to do something. Drupal answers maybe in a data format. This data format is converted to actual text message to the end user. And this is basically how you run an agent in code. So it's a plugin system. Can you read this? It's very small. Yeah, good. So there is a plugin system that can load an agent. In this case, it's a taxonomy agent. You create a task, create 15 taxonomy terms about the most popular Drupal modules on the vocabulary Drupal modules. set this task on the agent, set the AI provider, OpenAI in this case, set a model GPT-4o. In this case, we tell it to create directly. So there's two modes. It can actually give you back something called a blueprint. So basically, this is how I am going to create it, but I haven't created yet. So you can see what's happening. I'm going to showcase why this is important in a second. And then basically you ask it, can you solve this? And if it's solvable, you just go ahead and solve it. And this can answer in a couple of different ways as well. It can say, no, I can solve it. If you ask the taxonomy agent, create a field, doesn't know how to do it. Or it might give you suggestions, or it might have to ask you questions, or it might be that you have asked it question, does this vocabulary exist, for instance, on my system? And that's all you have to do. So because of this, the agent system is headless. So this means that we can have different UXs running over this, not just this chatbot that you have seen. So I wanted to showcase something where we take something very unstructured. So what I did yesterday when I was creating the presentation, you can't see this now, but I guess you can see it here. I just scribbled down a web form. So we have a web form agent that you can basically chat with to create web forms, where I just scribbled down some stuff like your first name. So this is about my session. What did you think of the session? I use stuff that happens when you write like or oh, I didn't like better. I write cooler instead, right? And this is supposed to be a text area, your email. And here, what kind of donor is the best? I might not know donor types. So I just write here, suggest 3 different, right? And then we have, if you download AI agents, we have some prototype GUIs for this or user experiences. One is that something that hooks into the web form then. So it's called AI Agents web form, I think. So when you start creating a web form, the only difference now then is there is generate with AI. So I'm just going to write here session form. So, and when you click generate with AI, there's basically 2 things you can do here. Well, there's 3 things. So you can get a blueprint, but we're not going to do that in this case. You could do a prompt, but you can also upload a file then. And depending a little bit on what you have installed on your system, this can handle a lot of different things. Now we're just going to do image, but it could be a CSV, Word file. You could record yourself talking about how you want to create the web form. You can record a video, how you want to create the web form and so on, and upload this. But now we're just going to take the image and there it is. So what it's going to do now, there's first a pre-agent here that looks at the image and basically describes this to the web form. These are the forms that they want to create, and this is given to the web form agent then. And this is also a complex instruction, so it might not get it 100% right. This is one of the things where it gets it around 90% correct. But maybe if we're lucky this time. So, yeah, you can see session form. And you can see it even understood what's required and what's not required. And if we take the donor list, it should have made up something, yeah. So this is another way that you can use the agent. It doesn't have to be this chatbot. You can write your own UX around it, however you want to use it. And I would say also this makes it more likely to succeed. So I'm going to explain how the chatbot works later, because the chatbot is trying to orchestrate every agent that exists on the website, while here it's very clear. You want to create a web form. There's nothing else you want to do in this case. So let's get back to this. So if you want to create your own agent, it's actually not very complicated. So there is one method that is really important, and this is this one. So there's an agent helper that has a run sub-agent, and basically the two first variables here is important. The first one is pointing to a prompt file that I'm going to show in a minute. The second one is the context that you need to give dynamically into this case. And in this case, then, it's determined field settings. So we're trying to determine the field settings. Then we have to know, of course, what is the available field setting for this specific field type. What is the current settings? If it's an edit, this is important, of course. If it's a crate, this is probably empty. So this loads this file. That is basically a structured format how you can run prompts. And I think I have it zoomed in here. So first there's an introduction, like free text. You're a Drupal developer. This is what you can do, blah, 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 blah. But I have structured it in such a way that you always ask for possible actions. So this is the things you can do. In this case, it can just manipulate because it's the field settings. That's the only thing it can do there. But there you could have, create, delete, edit, whatever you want to do. And formats. This is the format that you want the JSON to output. So in this case, it's going to output action, settings, information. And then learning examples is very, very important. I know Julian talked about it yesterday as well. It's very important to fill in these. And it's very simple to explain why. So I mean, there used to be this notion that there could be prompt engineers earning $300,000 per year or something. But the conclusion that has come basically when it comes to prompting is if you're good at communication, you're good at prompting. And if you think of this thing, you're asking an intern, for instance, that you want them to go and scrape the internet and fill out a form on paper in some specific way. So you have the option where you're asking the person to do this and just tell them, hey, fill out this form. Or you're doing it and then you're showing them. I fill out this website like this and this website like this. In the second case, it's going to be more likely to fill it out like you want it. And this is true for humans as well, right? So the reason it's a YAML file is because this is basically the end product where it's writing out JSON and stuff, and this is really hard to write for a human. So that's why it's keeping this format when you're creating it, because this is YAML is easy enough that you can write it by hand, while this would be half impossible. And then basically, you can try to send this in, and you get some output. And anyone that has ever looked into the config files for field config would probably recognize this. So this is what it has outputted, an actual config for a field config then. So there is a developer tool for this that we showcase as well, which is this one. So this is also a submodule called AI Agents Explorer or something like that, where you can basically test the instruction directly against the agent and see how it runs all the sub-agents. So in this case, we're going to run it against field type agent. We're going to take this instruction we had before that is very, very complex. We're going to use OpenAI in this case. And you're going to see in real time all the steps it takes. So this is very good when you're developing because you will see basically where it's failing when it's not correct. So if you have to create an agent that does multiple steps like this, you can see the responses here. Basically what it's respawned. If you click on it, it's going to open in a new window where you can close this, where you can see the prompt used, the question, the response given in real JSON here, and even the detailed output and so on. So you can follow everything. And then at the end, it's going to have a final answer. Okay, I have done what you wanted. And if we go back to this, we can see now if it actually created the my images. So if everything worked, it should be private files. It should be JPEG. It has 4K as maximum. Minimum full HD, 5 megabyte. It disabled all text. If we go to the form display, it should use focal point. Yeah, focal point. And on manage display, it should link to the file, so that it failed with. This is one of the 10% of cases where it actually failed. So this happens when you do live demos. No, I'm looking at the wrong image. It did work. So it is full HD as we asked it, and it linked to the file. So it was one of the 90% of cases where it actually works. So there's a developer tool if you want to develop these yourself as well. Then let's just talk a little bit shortly about the chatbot and Drupal CMS as well. So there's a middle layer here called the Assistance API. That is basically an orchestrator for the agents. And I can skip this because we're short on time, I see. But you can set this up. So this can run action plugins. And action plugins can be anything. It doesn't have to be agents. It was made for RAG from the beginning. So you can run it so like you ask a question and it just answers like ChatGPT. You can run it against RAG. So if anyone went to Christoph's talk yesterday, he was talking about this. The reason why we have Assistance API in between there is to do something called advanced RAG, because if you're asking this, you actually want to do multiple searches. You don't just want to search on what they're asking. It gives back a response. And this is the same way it works with the agents then, that you're asking the Assistant API, here are all the agents, here's the question, which are the agents that can take care of this? It forwards this, they give back answers, and this just creates a collected answer for this. I would just say, if you look into the code, the chatbot we did in 4 hours, it's horrible. Don't judge us based on this. So fundamentally, Drupal is really, really good for this. Because first of all, it can do everything you want, or not everything, but it can do a lot without writing a single line of code. And why is this important? Because you don't want AI to write code. That's very irresponsible at the moment, at least. And that makes it easy enough to do one of the things that Dries talked about when it comes to responsible AI, and that's to have a human in the loop. Because if you can verify everything via GUI, a person that doesn't know coding can also be the human in the loop. Because if you have an AI that creates code, only developers will be able to understand this. It has a reusable and standardized configuration system. So one thing I will say, if you ever write schema files, the descriptions in those schema files are super important that they are actually understandable. Because then it will make everything that the AI is trying to do much simpler, because it can understand what everything is doing. And Drupal also usually have one module per problem it's trying to solve, not thousands like other CMSs. We already built the standardized AI base layer, and the good thing is it can scale with the customer. So Wix will probably have something similar in the future, but that's not scalable for enterprise and so on. It's mature. And it's open source. And this is probably the most important thing when it comes to responsible AI, that you can actually see what is happening in the background. And I will just talk about this as the last point, because I'm running out of time here, I see. But I want people to contribute to this. So if you are interested in this, it's a lot better that you build the agents, because building an agent is not complicated. for someone from the agents team to understand a complex module can be very, very hard. So I started on a views agent, and this is not finished. It's a very, very complex module to understand exactly everything the views can do. So it's better that the person that has the domain knowledge learns how to create an AI agent than the other way around. Yeah, it's pretty easy, and you know best how the module works. And this is also important because the idea is also that the AI is supposed to give back solutions on how to do best practices. Because one problem right now is when I'm asking it to create an image, for instance, it should maybe tell you like, oh, maybe you want the media module. Are you sure you want the actual image field? Because it's usually the best practice to have the media module. And also for the general AI agents, we are looking for co-contributors, co-maintainers as well. So if you're a developer, architect, visionary, anyone with ideas, please contact us. I will talk a little bit about future improvements as well. This I'm going to work on next week, workspaces revert. This is extra important when it's people that don't know how Drupal works. So they might not be able to actually verify what they wrote works because they don't know where to look. Then it's of course very important that you're also able to revert stuff when you don't know how to revert it. So if we use workspaces, you should hopefully, if it works, be able to tell the agent, hey, the things you did now, I didn't like them, just revert it. Yeah, give back Drupal best practices, suggest that. Better feedback loop then as well. So it actually suggests the media module before it starts doing something, instead of just creating an image field that might be wrong. Keep memory of how you want to do stuff. So if you tell it, I always want checkboxes on a taxonomy field, then you don't have to mention that every time you're talking to it. This is the most important thing to get it to 100% functionality and not 90%. Review agents. So you have an agent creating something, and then you have an agent that looks, did it actually work? No, you missed this small thing here. Try again. So it just tries that little thing again. This I will skip. Swarm is something from OpenAI, so that's actually the first real protocol that exists for this. That was, it just came a couple of weeks ago. So it might be that we're gonna switch over a lot of ideas from that. They have a handover protocol instead where it starts at one agent, that agent tells the next agent, like, hey, I did this first part, you probably need to do the next part, and so on. Instead of having one orchestrator, so like a project manager, like deciding from the beginning the actual steps to do. Yeah, we might want to move to smaller agents as well. It's very big. The field agent is, in reality, that is many agents. And having agents that checks if a field type exists on a node, the field agent is probably not the only one that needs this. Be able to run it in the background as well. Right now, you can just run it directly. Yeah, roadmap is basically make someone who knows Drupal, make that usable for someone who knows Drupal. There we are already, so you can start using it. If you know Drupal, you know how to actually do the instructions here. You know how to verify everything. Make them usable for someone who doesn't know Drupal to get started. We are probably there as well. So you can get, 60% out of the fields that you're thinking about and so on. This is what they're going to test in Edinburgh now. If you actually can make everything you want out of them. After that, what's important is to make more agents, but there we need help as well. We're currently just, it's currently just me. There's some other developer, Jasper is sitting here, for instance, who's working on the ECA agent, but we need more people that wants to work with this, basically. And that's the last part, then, to make them more consistent when doing large instructions, which is basically connected to the improvements I was talking about. Yeah, that's it. If you want to get in contact, you can reach out on #AI on Slack. There is this website, Workflows of AI. It doesn't talk much about AI agents, but everything else you can do with the AI module. And yeah, hopefully someone wants to contribute.